Muho jin jin mimyoho yakusenman gonan sogu gakon kemmon tokujuji gangen yorai shinjitsugi muzo jin jin mimyoho yakusenman gonan sogu gakon kemmon tokujuji gangen yorai shinjitsugi muzo jin jin mimyoho yakusenman gonan sogu gakon kemmon tokujuji gangen yorai shinjitsugi. So this is the end of the third day of the retreats. Tomorrow is going to be the one-day session, so you got the best slice ahead of you. And then after that, there's going to be a small campfire. I want to give a little talk. First, are there any questions up front? Anything you would like to ask? There was a small talk I had with the retreat participants at 9 o'clock under the tree outside. One of the questions that was asked, what purpose Zen practice has. So that's one thing I would like to talk about first. And if there's other questions, please don't hesitate to ask. So what purpose does this practice have? And you all probably already know the official answer, no purpose. Doesn't have a purpose. But then again, I mean, why would people come all the way to practice at Antaiji? Well, originally we had 13 people who wanted to come to the retreat because of the historic rainfalls. It's only 7. 5 had the luck that they could come here on the first day. 2 had to spend 3 days in Osaka and Himeji to come here for the last 2 days. There was one person who came all the way to Japan to participate in the first 3 days of the retreat. He could only take those first 3 days. And unfortunately, he had to exit Japan again 2 days. So in the end, he couldn't come here to stay 3 days in the capsule hotel in Osaka and leave Japan again without even having come here. So people make some efforts to actually go all the way to Antaiji. You use your time, you spend your money to practice here only for a short amount of time. So it would be, of course, good to know for what purpose. Well, one way to answer or to reply to that question would be, well, why do you ask me? Why do you ask me? You are the one. You are all the ones that kind of made the way to Antaiji. You had to buy a plane ticket if you came from abroad. You're putting in your time here. The people who participate in the retreat, they pay for the retreat. So you should know why you do it. Why do you ask me? I'm doing it because it's my job. I'm only doing it. I'm in here for the money, basically. Don't ask me why you do it. I mean, well, of course you can ask me, and to be honest, it doesn't pay so well, even for myself. So I'm starting to ask myself why I'm actually doing this still, after almost 30 years here in Antaiji. So first of all, I want to try to give an answer. What's the purpose of this practice? What's the difference, for example, between 3 days at the capsule hotel and 3 days at Antaiji? Wouldn't it be possible to practice Zen at a capsule hotel or anywhere in the world? And the answer, of course, is in theory, yes, but then probably it makes a difference. If people could practice Zen anywhere in the world, in any location, there wouldn't be a point in coming to Antaiji. So what is that difference? Of course, it would be best if you try to find out by yourself. Those who spend time here already had opportunity to do that. Tomorrow you will have another day, opportunity to see what difference it makes to sit for 10 hours on the cushion and to spend 10 hours like Sebastian will do in a couple of days, sitting on the beach with a beer. Or you're kind of in an internet cafe surfing the internet for 10 hours. You will see the difference that it makes by yourself. For example, during the winter in Antaiji, we have a lot of time to do whatever we want. You can study, you can practice a Zen in your room if you want to, you can surf the internet if you want to. And there's an obvious difference between 10 hours of doing this and 10 hours of doing that. Tomorrow, when you sit there in front of the wall 10 hours, you probably will ask yourself at one point, why am I doing this? And if you would be sitting in front of your computer, or you would be sitting there with your iPhone and you were surfing Facebook or YouTube or whatever, maybe you don't ask yourself the same question. Maybe you think actually what you're doing there is pretty interesting. So you follow whichever link interests you. And you're not in this situation where you ask yourself, why am I so stupid to be on Facebook right now? You're not in pain. You're not thinking of, I should just jump up and get out of the internet. But rather, you continue forever and ever and ever. And maybe at the end of the day, you ask yourself, why did I waste the whole day on the internet? But until then, it's at least interesting enough to keep you on the internet. The internet is just interesting enough to keep you online. Although maybe you have a doubt in the back of our mind, maybe I have more important things to do than that. But then still you keep on the internet. You stay on the internet. While with the Zen, I think mostly, in most cases, when you sit there and during these hours of the Zen, you might ask yourself over and over again, why am I doing that? What's the purpose of this? But then after 10 hours, usually you feel good about the fact that you stayed there sitting on the cushion. While in my case, I seldom have the same feeling of satisfaction after being on the internet for a long time. So in a way, the answer answers itself for most people. The moment you are there on the cushion, maybe it doesn't feel as entertaining than other things you could do in the same time. But afterwards, after the fact, at least I never regretted, oh shit, why didn't I spend this beautiful day with Sebastian on the beach sharing a beer? But rather I say, good that I was sitting here on the cushion.
With Sebastian next to you.
Yeah, even with Sebastian next to me. So what's happening there? Or, well, again, what's the purpose of this? What makes it non-regrettable? I think one difference between what we do in normal life and what we do when we do Zazen is, in normal life there's, well, certain things that interest us. So there's maybe some people are interested by money, and some people, they might be, say, interested in women. You're interested in fame. How would I write that? You're basically we're living in a world with many people, and well, there's this option with the beach. You could go to the beach and enjoy the beach. There's lots of things. We're in this world which is full of things, and we usually identify with one of these persons, which is us. And we try to get to these things that interest us, and usually we try to get more than the other guy, so we compare ourselves to the other guys. How much do these guys get, and how much do I get? Am I a winner or am I a loser? So we play this game. We're living in this game world, and we never have a doubt that we basically are this one player inside this game. And I'm not so familiar with Indian philosophy, but there's this word called avatar, which you also use now on the online. If you're on an online forum, also you have an avatar, which is basically your online personality. And it seems that this word originally means our physical existence, or our phenomenal existence in this world. So basically, in my case, it would be Muho. In this world, I'm Muho. And there's Sebastian, there's Joanna, there's lots of other people. And I'm playing kind of this game where it's about winning or losing in this world. Whenever I feel I'm winning, I feel good about myself, I think everything's going fine. And when I feel I'm losing, I feel this game actually sucks. But where is this game actually taking place? Well, in this case, I'm writing all this stuff on the whiteboard. But where does this whiteboard stand for? Basically, this whiteboard is reality that I'm experiencing right now. And usually we forget this space, this white space reality that we are living, and we are only absorbed by what is happening inside this, kind of the content, what is written on the whiteboard. And we identified with one part inside this. And what you do in the Zen is, first of all, you stop playing this game. So that's also the point in saying there's no purpose. When you specify what I try to say is specify. You specify one purpose. You say Zazen is about, well, for example, getting enlightenment. Then you have just another big thing here, the big boom, the spiritual sun lighting up in the big bulb here lighting up in your skull. I need to get it. I need to get this big enlightenment. Or you say Zazen is about calming down your mind. Zazen is about getting more relaxed, maybe have some good ideas that later help you in your work life, whatever. When you specify a purpose, then basically you're back in that game. You're playing the game again. And you judge the quality of your Zen by, well, the closer you got to your purpose. So it's basically the same game that you play all the time anyway with work. Am I getting further ahead with my career? Am I getting further ahead with my rivals? Am I getting as much sex as I want? Am I getting as much beer on the beach as I want? And I get as close to enlightened as I think? Do I have experiences that I expected, that I read about in the books? Do I get these experiences? So when we say the Zen has no purpose, then first of all, that's to get you out of this game. It means that, hey, take a break at playing this game. There's no need for you to identify with this player, because actually this white board where this game is happening on, or this reality, that's basically you. If you weren't there, that would mean this white board isn't here. The game can only be played because you are here. But usually we forget about this and identify only with that. And Zazen, in a way, is a means, or it gives us the opportunity to get back to this. Of course, I couldn't be living without this person, but actually everything that's happening in that 1 hour, the sounds, the wall I see, the whole physical sensations, everything that manifests is me. It's just that most of that I don't even notice because I'm so busy playing this game. So if you ask me what's the purpose of the Zen, one thing that comes to mind is to get from here, this little me, to noticing there's this white board. And the white board basically means that which in this moment hears my voice. And probably all of you hear my voice right now. How can you hear that voice? Because you have this. Because you have this container or whatever, the screen on which reality appears. And once more, usually we only identify with the main actor on the screen. We think our life is only lived by this main actor on the screen. We forget about the screen. Now, that might be a little difference between Buddhism and maybe the rest of Indian philosophy. And again, I don't know much about Indian philosophy, but one impression I get from Indian philosophy is that they emphasize very much that this small me is only an illusion, it's an avatar, and there's a true self. Basically, this true self is, if this is my online identity and I play an online game with this identity, the true self would be that what remains if I switch off the computer, or if there's a electric shortage, the computer gets up, breaks down, there would be still my real self sitting there. And even on the internet, it happens probably to a lot of people a lot of the times that they completely forget about this self because they're so absorbed by their online identity. But at the end of the day, you have to take a pee, you have to eat, you have to sleep, and at these moments return to your true self. And it seems that in some Indian schools of thought, they think that that's literally also the case with this reality. So that there's this illusionary self of mine, and then there's a true self somewhere else. And what makes Buddhism maybe a little bit complicated is that it, on the one hand, says, no, this is not your true self. On the other hand, though, it's not that the true self is completely somewhere else, but basically this illusionary, so-called illusionary small self couldn't be there without the bigger self. And the bigger self can not manifest anywhere else but here. So these two are not the same, but they're also not divided, which in, well, the Hanya Shingyo would be this famous phrase, Shiki Sokuzei Ku, Ku Sokuzei Shiki, which you would write. Shiki Soku, not that's it. Do I do this right? No. Shiki Soku. Ze. これ合っているのかな。これは即は合ってますか？1、2。色即税空。あ、それ、即は違う。ここが、こっちが合ってる。こっちがこう。で、こうですね。はい。色即税空 which in Japan in English would be formed as emptiness. Well, this one is pretty straightforward. Everything we see, including all of us, is impermanent. But then it continues. Ku, soku, ze, shiki. These two are exchanged. Emptiness is form. And this is kind of a riddle, unless you interpret it as basically meaning the same. The same statement is made twice. Everything is emptiness. Emptiness is form. But emptiness is form seems to me mean something else. Form is emptiness. That's clear. But how can emptiness be form? Emptiness is usually interpreted as being just nothing. How can nothing be form? And you can interpret that in many ways, but one meaning of this emptiness is what I just call this whiteboard or reality. That needs to be there for things to appear in the first place. What needs to be here for the world to manifest? What needs to be there so that sounds can be heard? Or what needs to be there so that colors can appear? Basically me. If I wouldn't be here, there wouldn't be any sounds. If I wouldn't be here, there wouldn't be any colors. And the same, each of you can probably say about yourself. So one meaning of this emptiness is yourself, and yourself not in the small sense, but in the sense of the whole screen. Form is emptiness means that everything you see and hear in this moment is yourself in the big sense. But this big self is not somewhere else. It's not in a separate place. But this big self cannot manifest anywhere but here in this form. So these two are not the same, but they're also not separate. So when we do Zazen, I have the feeling that depending on the person, for some people, maybe through the Zen or other forms of meditation, for the first time they realize, they notice that actually I'm not restricted to this person. For my whole life, I thought I'm just this person, this body. I have this face, and that's me, this name. But actually, I'm something beyond that. And for other people, it's almost the other way around, and that includes me. Like, already as a kid, I could never really think of this person as my true self. I would rather think that's, like using the example of the screen, I've always had the feeling like I'm watching a movie, which is my life, but I'm sitting somewhere back in the movie theater and there's nobody else. I'm alone in this movie theater, I'm watching this movie, and there's many actors, of course. I'm the main actor in the movie, there's other actors. But why am I actually sitting here? Why don't I not just leave the movie theater? What I'm doing in this movie theater? What is it all good for? The movie's going to end anyway. Maybe it's a happy end, maybe it's a bad end. But what does it interest me? I'm not really that actor. Actually, I'm sitting back here all by myself. And what I realized, or what struck me with doing Zazen, is that when I'm doing Zazen, it's Muho. It's this one guy. If this one guy does Zazen, for some reason, that changes everything. Which struck me because, I mean, it's the guy in the movie who's doing Zazen. How come that seems to change everything? And the only explanation can be that actually I am not somebody sitting back in the cinema, but that I'm actually manifesting here on the screen. And if there's a change on here in form, in the world of form, that is a change of emptiness, or the form changing wouldn't be possible without emptiness. And emptiness is expressing also in the change of form. So for some people, the amazing thing about Zazen is that they get a little bit out from being kept in form, and they realize, oh, there's also me as emptiness. And for some people, it's the other way around. they realize, oh, actually, I'm not only this transcendental emptiness, but I'm actually manifesting in form. And that connects to something we also talked about in the morning, that for some people it's the hardest thing to just sit there on the cushion for an hour and then another hour and then another hour, when they could be enjoying themselves or do meaningful work, for example. Some people would probably prefer to work for 10 hours doing something meaningful than just sit there in front of the wall. And then for other people, it's the other way around. For them, just sitting there and being released from the responsibility to worry about useful things, and also the kind of, in today's world, which is to a great degree hedonistic, there's almost this imperative that you need to have fun. If you don't have fun, you're a loser. And some people who don't subscribe to that, just being able to sit there for 10 hours and there's no need to even have fun. You don't even have to have fun. You don't have to work. At 9 you have breakfast, and then at 3 again you have curry rice. That's a big, how do you say, release. Finally, I can just sit there for 10 hours. But then it's also a challenge, or sometimes it's the true practice for these people is to get them off the cushion and tell them, yes, okay, Zazen is good for nothing, there's no purpose, but hey, there's deer in the rice fields and you're responsible for the fence. So with some people, they need to forget about the world of form, about this game from time to time, and just sit down for an hour and then maybe another hour. And for some people, they need to realize there's no separate game from this. It's not that we switch off this game and then we connect to our true selves. But at least in Zen, as I understand it, basically at the end of the day, return to the game. It's just that you play it in a different way. You don't play for this one guy alone anymore, but you're concerned about the whole, everything that's happening on this board. But the solution is not that we try to sit still for as many hours as we possibly can and try to survive only on rice gruel, and if the deer come into the rice field, let them eat the rice. If the boars dig up the potatoes, let them dig up the potatoes. I have no attachment, I will just sit here. And if I starve, let me starve. That's not how I see it. So sometimes the Zen means to completely forget about everything else. But then at the end of the day, it means to return and take actually everything very serious. All these things that you could call illusionary existence, all these phenomena, because there's nothing but that. The whiteboard is not separate from this. So the whiteboard is important because it gives space to all these other things that happen on there, like the sun, the moon, the stars, and people. So it's not that you have to erase all this stuff or to forget about this stuff so that the whiteboard can appear. And the whiteboard again means yourselves. But these are never separate. The complication only arises because we think that, well, there's only one of these aspects, only this is the true me. And the world is something that's happening in here in this head, when actually all of this, it's the other way around. So sometimes people say reality is created by the brain, but you could just as well say the brain is created by reality, or people say that reality is inside the brain, when in reality the brain is inside reality. Okay, so that was a little bit philosophical. 日本人の方々はどこまで理解されたんでしょうか。大丈夫でしたか。何か質問とかありますか。ここはちょっとわからなかったので、もっと聞きたい。
エンプティが型をなす。
はい。
エンプティ空なしが型をなすということを、座禅をすることでそれを成し遂げる。
まあ色即是空ではこの色の一つの意味は現にここにいる名前のある顔のある私の場合はネルク無法というもので空はそれを超えた今であっているすべてのもので内山老子という人は片方を一切分の一の自分この色というのは一切分の一ここには十数人いるけれどもその十数人分の1でしかないこの私人類では70億人分の1のネルク無法ところが出会っているものすべてという自己があるで座禅の場合ですと人によってはいつもこいつが負けた勝ったで悪せしているそれだけで生きている人がいるけれどもなんだ全部私じゃないかこのホワイトボード全部私じゃないかそもそもここに世界が現れているのは私がいるこの世界で現れているすべてのものが私じゃないかという気づきこれが色即是空ならばその逆のことも言える要するに人によってだけれどもなかなかこの人生というゲームに最初から参加したくないという人もたまにはいる。このゲームだけに夢中になっている人も多い。むしろそっちの方が多数派でしょう。金儲けしたい、セックスがしたい、有名になりたい。このゲームに夢中になっている人もいるけれども、そもそもこのゲームなんか僕参加したくないよと。で、なんか逃げ道がないかなと。で、そういえば、座禅したら、ただ座ればいいらしい。で、これも、まずいというか、本当の禅じゃない。この、生きるというゲームから逃げるために座禅をするんじゃなくて、人によっては、このホワイトボードが本来の自分なんだけれども、これはどこに現れているかというと、具体的にこいつが座禅している姿に現れている。で、それを空即是色。色が幻の世界であって、空が本当の自分であって、別のところにあるんではなくて、色と空は違うんだけれども空がなければ色はないし色がなければ空だって何もないわけですね。ですから天地いっぱいの自己といえどもそれがどこに現れるかというと一切分の一でしかない自分の中に現れている。これが私が理解している色即是空、空即是色で座禅の場合はそういうふうに まあ式と空を行き来している、お互い確認し合っている、そういうパーパスもあるんじゃないかと思っているんですね。勝った負けた、という式の中のゲームから、なんだそれゲームだけじゃないかと、そんなゲームに勝ったって負けたって最終的には一緒じゃないかというところに目覚める。かといってじゃあ別のゲームがどこかに用意されているのではなく、そこに変えて、ただその、別のゲームではないけれども、このルールとは別のルールがあってもいいんじゃないかと。要するに人との比較の中で生きなくたっていいじゃないか。そもそもこいつとこいつとこいつは比較できてても、このホワイトボードは何の他のものとも比較できない。私が言っているこの現実は、宗男さんのそれとは比較することはできない。だから身長は比較できてても、持っているお金は比較できてても、乗っている車は比較できてても、おのおのが生きている世界は比較できてない。なのにこのおのおのが生きている世界はほとんど問題にしてなくて、世界の中の持ち物だけを問題にして比較して見ている。でもそれは結局どうでもいいことになってしまうんですね。だから明日からの座禅でも、おそらくおのおのが全然違う10時間の座禅を過ごすことになると思うけれども、この座禅だって人と比較できないわけですね。でそういうことには、座禅が一番気づかせてくれていることかもしれないですね。仕事だと仕事の成果があるわけですから、できる人とできない人ができてしまう。料理もまずい人とうまい人がいる。そうすると、5日間料理当番当たった後には、自分は人よりうまくできたのかな、負けたのかなというのはあるけれども、座禅の場合は、姿勢の良し悪しがあったとしても、座禅の中身は全く比較できない。全く比較できない世界。で、そここそいいわけですね。そこがいいと思うんですね。So when you work for a 5-day cycle, there's a result of your work, and you can compare, even though nobody really in Antaiji would make any fuss about it, but you can compare, well, did I do as much as the others? Did I do it maybe more? Did I do less? Or if in the tensor for 5 days, and you might compare yourself with the other tensors. How was my food in comparison with the others? Or did Dojo complain about me? He complained about me, he didn't complain about the other tensors. So I'm a loser. Or you think he didn't complain about me, but he complained about somebody else, so I'm a winner. With a lot of the stuff that we do, it's not really necessary to compare, but we can compare ourselves, and it's possible to compare. We can compare our physical statutes, we compare our faces, we can compare the results of what we do. But with the Zen, that's almost impossible. I mean, you can still compare your posture. My posture is better than your posture. My breath is longer than your breath. But when it comes to the content or what's actually happening when you sit there, how would you ever compare that? It's like, in this example, you can compare these 3 guys with each other, and you can compare the money they own and the clothes they wear. But what you cannot compare is this whiteboard with another whiteboard, because there's no whiteboard. if you wanted to compare the whiteboard, you would have to put it on a bigger whiteboard, but you can't do that. So basically what I'm saying, I cannot compare my world to Sebastian's world or Johanna's world. I can compare myself with Sebastian, and I'm always kind of saying, here, that's the guy who's broke down our car and he made up his winter report and things like that. And I can say, well, I never did that. Here, look, I wrote 10 books in Japanese and they sell well. And here, this guy copies the stuff from the internet. But that's kind of a comparison that's possible. But what I cannot compare is my world or the reality I live with Sebastian's reality. And the tragic thing, if you want to call it tragic, is that most of our lives we spend with these comparisons and forget about that only one thing that we can never compare, which is the reality right now. And congratulate ourselves when we think that we won in the comparison, and we pity ourselves when we think we lost in the comparison, without realizing that we are living right now something that we can't even compare, which is this reality. And each of us lives a reality at this moment that you can never compare to anybody else's reality. You can't even compare it to yesterday's reality or tomorrow's reality, because where are those? Where's yesterday's reality? You only have memories of yesterday, which are part of today's reality. So when you think that yesterday or 10 years ago or 50 years ago everything was better, it's just a memory of that time that you're comparing to something that you can't really compare, because you're trying to compare a memory to reality. How do you do that? And when you think the others have it better than me, you're comparing something. You're trying to compare something you can't compare, because how do you actually know somebody else's reality? You only know how they look like in your reality. And in your reality, you think you might be the loser, or you might think be the winner, but actually you don't know the reality of these people. So one thing that Zazen brings us to is to realize there's something beyond comparison, and that's the reality I'm living right now. The reality of this one day, this one person sitting here on the cushion. And you can't trade that with anybody else, even if you try to. There's no way to trade your 10-hour session tomorrow with somebody else's 10-hour session tomorrow. There's no way of trading this July 10th session with June 10th or May 10th session. No comparison possible. And that's something that should be obvious, but we forget quite easily. So much for the time being. Do you have any questions about this or about other things? Yes, please.
Well, when you talk about the movie analogy,
Yes.
the movie theater, and you say that you're distanced from the movie, but then you can start taking the acting in the movie seriously because the boars in the field are digging up potatoes. And there's some action you should take. For me, that makes sense. The action you should take for survival, but I guess what sort of action, or how do you decide what actions to take that are beyond basic survival?
Like, for example?
having children, or I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, having children is it's a
Or
difficult one. At least for Buddhist monk, because originally the Buddha said, "Don't marry, don't have children." That's one of the main precepts, and it's kept by most Asian monks. Japanese are one of the very few ordained Buddhists that still start families. For me, the point where the very strong wish to not only have a sexual relationship, but actually also to have children. In my case, that came around the age of 30. Sexual desire was always there, of course, but when I was young, no way I wanted children. But at one point around the age of 30, I also had a strong wish to have children. And that was at a time when I felt quite at home in the world. So from the movie example, I didn't feel that distance anymore, and this urge to get out of the movie cinema, asking myself, why am I sitting through this boring movie? I felt quite at home there with that movie, and basically having children in this example would be to allow others to also witness a different movie, maybe in a different theater, in a completely parallel universe from mine. So even though they are your children, I got 3, but still what I said about Sebastian and me is the same about my children. I can't share their reality, they can't share mine. But by having children, you're basically allowing a different universe to appear, or a different reality to appear there. And when I felt happy with the fact that I'm here, there's a universe manifesting here, there's reality manifesting here in me, I felt, oh, it would be great if I could also be the cause for new realities to manifest. So when people say you must not have children, well, it could have a lot of reasons, but in a way it means we shouldn't multiply this reality. We shouldn't give cause to new realities to come into existence. Why? Because reality is suffering. And there I see the main difference between maybe the older Buddhism and Mahayana Buddhism. So for me, it's just a logical consequence of the development of Mahayana Buddhism that today in Japan many people marry, because if you feel okay with the fact that you're living in this reality and you're experiencing life, and of course it's not satisfactory, but it's not so bad either. It's not so bad at the end of the day. If you accept life as it is, and including the suffering, you might realize actually it's not so bad, and then why not have children? If you think that the goal of reality is to make everything disappear on this board, and then eventually also the board itself dissolves, and that's nirvana, then of course you should not have kids. So yeah, that was only about this one specific question about deciding about if to have children or not. Well, you said, how about other things that are not directly related to survival? I would say, I mean, you can play this game to the full, or no, you can. The problem is not so much how much of your energy you invest in it, but it's the problem arises out of the fact that most of the time we play it against an opponent which isn't really there. Like we think that these guys are our opponents, but they're actually, we're playing against ourselves. So we're losing a lot of the energy by playing against this imaginary opponent. If we wanted to really play it against an opponent, we would need to have a second whiteboard there, and there would have to be a means to compare these whiteboards against each other, but there is no such point of view, except if you were God, for example. Then maybe if you were God, you could compare your reality to my reality, Sebastian's reality, but we are not God. So there's no way to play that game in that way. So when we realize actually those are not our opponents, then we can play the game to its full. There's no problem with that. And as I told you, I don't see a problem with marrying and having kids. But if you don't feel that desire, then of course you don't have to. But and that makes it a little bit complicated, because marrying and having kids then means basically that this whiteboard produces something that doesn't exist on the whiteboard. I mean, there's these two, they fall in love, and then they have kids, but these kids not only exist in their world, but actually it means that they're separate realities coming into existence. And I mean, that's also, if you don't realize that often causes problems in families or in school or whatever, when you think that my kids is basically what I believe my kid to be. You think your kid is part of your world. And it is, of course, part of your world, but from the perspective of the kids, you're only a part of the world of the kids. And what the kid is really living is a completely different reality that you can't even share, and you can't even compare it to your own. And if you deny that reality of the kids, then you're causing a lot of trouble for both of you, and you're causing a lot of pain for your kid. Any questions? Could be also technical stuff about the sesshin, or technical stuff about zazen. You have questions about the posture, the breath, the mind. No questions. So yeah, well, the topic of today's talk was the purpose of Zazen. Why are we doing this? And if the question arises again tomorrow in your mind when you're sitting there in front of the wall, why am I doing this? also use the opportunity to dig into that. Well, why? You don't have to. You don't have to. Need no one of us here. Nobody has to do it. I also mentioned that in the morning, like sometimes people tell me it's not the same in the Hondo if I'm there or if I'm not there. So sometimes people say if you are there, dojo, everybody sits straight and people are awake. If you're not there, it doesn't feel exactly the same. Which I can somehow understand, because of course it makes a difference if you know, oh, the teacher's there, the teacher's kind of watching. But on the other hand, it should be clear right from the start, you're not doing this for me. You're not doing it for me, you're not just sitting for me. And if I can help you, for example, through my presence, just if the fact that I'm sitting there with you helps you, well, I'm happy if I can help you in that way. But at the end of the day, you don't do this for me. So if I'm sitting there or not, that shouldn't give your zazen a purpose. It shouldn't be the purpose of zazen to kind of impress me. So in the end, only you can find the answer to the question why. Why am I sitting there? Why am I doing this? You have lots of other options. You could have spent your time, your money and your energy in different ways. But you're sitting there on the cushion. Why are you doing that? And if by tomorrow you think that, oh, another day at the capsule hotel would also have been nice, maybe even better. Well, maybe it means that your practice was very sincere at the capsule hotel. So there's nothing wrong about that. But could also mean that you didn't give your whole on the cushion. So, of course, it's true that practice is possible everywhere. You don't have to be in Antaiji to practice, and you don't even have to sit on a meditation cushion to practice. It's just the question is, do you really give yourself completely to the moment? And that's probably only possible if you feel there's a purpose in that, even if you couldn't explain it in words. Well, this here is my purpose. So it's probably, at the end of the day, it's impossible to specify it here. This is the purpose of my zazen. But you got the feeling. This is what I want to do with my time right now. And if you don't have that feeling, then maybe you shouldn't be sitting. But yeah, sitting on the beach with a beer and your girlfriend.
Would be nice.
Yeah, well, in 2 days. Only 2 more days. I'm counting the time. Counting the time. When is the bell ringing?
Nothing wrong with that.
Okay, anything else from your side? Okay, if not, then thank you for your attention, and we will finish. 诸众無変世願道煩悩無尽世願断オマン無用世願学仏道無常世願上主常無変世願道煩悩無尽世願断オマン無用世願学仏道無常世願上主常無変世願道煩悩無尽世願断オマン無用世願学仏道